Severe Typhoon Utor moves closer to the region. Traffic accidents around town leave 1 dead and over 20 injured. And India unveils its home-built aircraft carrier.
Good evening. The Hong Kong Observatory has raised the standby signal number 1 as a powerful typhoon nears the city. The observatory warned the weather may worsen and hasn't ruled out a higher storm signal. Earlier today, severe Typhoon Utor slammed into the Philippines, leaving at least 1 person dead, while more than 20 fishermen are reportedly missing at sea. Diane To reports.
Weather experts are calling this the strongest cyclone in the world so far this year. Severe Typhoon Utor swept through Luzon in the northern Philippines early this morning. Swollen rivers flooded residential areas, washing away houses and carrying people along with them. Trees and power poles were also toppled. More than 1,000 people were forced to seek shelter. In one of the worst hit areas, massive landslides blocked off the only road to Baguio. This villager said she didn't think she would live to see the morning when her house got hit by the typhoon overnight. The Philippine government says hundreds of homes were destroyed by winds with gusts of up to 175 kilometers per hour. Thousands of travelers have been stuck, with air and sea traffic grinding to a halt. Torrential rain has hit capital city Manila, but it has been spared from serious floods and damage so far. Here in Hong Kong, despite the blue skies and sunshine here today, the observatory raised the standby signal number 1 this afternoon.
According to the forecast track, Utor is expected to edge closer to the South China coast tomorrow, and local winds will gradually pick up tomorrow. The observatory will consider issuing the strong wind signal number 3.
But it doesn't expect winds to pick up significantly before midnight tonight. Utor is forecast to move west-northwest at about 22 kilometers per hour in the general direction of the western coast of Guangdong. Diane To, TVB News.
India today launched its first home-built aircraft carrier, marking another milestone in the country's effort to boost its maritime presence. India now joins the elite club of countries in building its own carrier, such as the U.S., Russia, Britain, and France. The INS Vikrant was unveiled Saturday at the Kochi shipyard in southern Kerala state. The ship is 260 meters in length and 60 meters wide. The vessel still needs to be outfitted and undergo extensive trials before it is officially inducted into the Indian Navy in 2018. India has steadily built up its naval capabilities in recent years, spurred by its rivalry with neighboring China.
Washington and Manila begin formal negotiations this week to increase the presence of U.S. forces in the Philippines. The Philippine Foreign Affairs Minister made the announcement today at the country's main army base. If it goes ahead, the arrangement would see more American aircraft, ships, troops, and supplies deployed on a rotational basis to the country. The widening of military cooperation is another sign. The Philippines is looking to America to help it counter a newly assertive China. It also comes as Washington pivots its military attention more to the Asia-Pacific region, something which many have interpreted as a strategy to keep Beijing in check.
Police in Sri Lanka have imposed a curfew on the capital of Colombo after mobs clashed for a second day over a mosque. 7 worshippers were injured in the violence. 2 police officers were injured while trying to prevent the clashes between the Buddhist mob and Muslim youths defending the mosque. Riot police and police commandos were deployed to strengthen security around the mosque. The attack comes amid a growing anti-Muslim campaign by Buddhist nationalist groups who consider Muslims a threat to their political and economic well-being. More than 30 attacks on Muslim-owned businesses have been reported since September 2011.
Egyptian authorities are moving to break up supporters of ousted President Mohamed Morsi, who've been camping out in Cairo. The interim government has been warning for weeks that it would crack down on Morsi supporters who've been encamped in the capital. They have vowed to stand their ground and resist efforts to remove them. It raises fears of even more bloodshed if the situation becomes violent. Morsi supporters and members of his Muslim Brotherhood have been holding frequent rallies and demonstrations, calling for his reinstatement. Morsi was ousted at the beginning of July following a people power movement supported by the Egyptian military. Israel has released the names of 26 Palestinian prisoners set to go free within days after spending more than 2 decades behind bars. The move is the first stage of a deal over the resumption of peace talks between the Jewish state and the Palestinians. They are the first batch from a group of more than 100 prisoners that Israel has decided in principle to free as part of the agreement. That agreement was reached following intensive diplomacy last month, led by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, to renew talks for a Palestinian state.
Edward Snowden's father and a family lawyer have secured visas to Russia, where they will travel to see the former spy agency contractor who's been given temporary asylum in the country. The pair say they will discuss the younger Snowden's legal options if he chooses to return to America to fight the espionage charges against him. Tony Sabine reports.
Bruce, fine. Thank you both for joining.
The father of Edward Snowden and a lawyer for the family will visit Russia soon to meet the former National Security Agency contractor whose leak of classified material this year triggered a global outcry about the extent of American government surveillance operations. The trip will enable Lawrence Snowden to see his son for the first time in months and discuss his legal options if he chooses to return to the United States to stand trial on espionage charges.
We have visas. We have a date, which we won't disclose right now because of the frenzy. Very soon. And we intend to visit with Edward and suggest criminal defense attorneys who've got experience in Espionage Act prosecutions.
Still, Snowden's father and lawyer were skeptical the 30-year-old fugitive could get a fair trial back in America, given the sensational and emotional coverage of his case.
At this point, what I would like is for this to be vetted in open court for the American people to have all of the facts. What I've seen is much political theater.
The youngest Snowden was stuck at a Moscow airport for more than 5 weeks before Russian authorities granted him a year's asylum at the beginning of this month. Lawrence Snowden hopes his son will one day be able to return to America.
But I would like at some point in time for him to be able to come back to the U.S., whether he's going to live the rest of his life here or not, and face this, because I believe that the truth will shine through.
Tony Sabine, TVB News.
Taiwan's President Ma Ying-jeou has arrived in New York for a 40-hour stopover before visiting a number of Latin American and Caribbean countries. One of Ma's public activities in New York was a banquet attended by some 300 overseas Chinese. Among the participants were Taiwanese-born Oscar-winning director Ang Lee and his wife. When Ma landed in New York, the chairman of the American Institute in Taiwan, Raymond Burkhart, boarded the plane to greet him. Earlier, Ma told reporters in mid-flight that it's important for Taiwan to consolidate its diplomatic ties, and foreign visits will help the island accumulate its soft power. Ma will meet with New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg and other politicians during his stopover. He'll also visit his alma mater, New York University, and Ground Zero. Traffic accidents across the city today left at least one person dead and more than 20 others injured. Our Evelina Lung reports.
The minibus smashed into a motorcycle shop after crashing with a tour bus. The accident happened at about 7 a.m. at the intersection of Ah Ching Wai Road and Junction Road in Kowloon City. The 51-year-old minibus driver, who also suffered from a liver disease, was rushed to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Another person, a 64-year-old passenger on the minibus, was injured. Police are now looking into whether the drivers were speeding. About 2 hours later, 20 people were injured in a 7-car pileup near the Kowloon-bound entrance to Tate's Can Tunnel. The crash happened at around 9 o'clock when a bus, 4 private cars, and 2 vans ran into the back rear of each other. A bus passenger said it seemed the driver didn't expect the van in front of him to slow down. Police said the driver swerved to his right to avoid ramming into the slowing car in front, but ended up crashing into another van, causing a chain reaction. The accident resulted in traffic gridlock throughout the morning peak hours. Around the same time, another 7-car pileup happened at Longchang Road westbound near Beacon Heights. Again, police said they suspect that a driver had failed to stop his vehicle in time. 2 people were injured in the crash. And over on the island, a domestic helper and a 12-year-old girl were crossing Kings Road at around 10 a.m. when they were hit by a minibus. Both were sent to hospital for treatment. Evelina Lang, TVB News.
And still ahead in our newscast, health experts discuss a bird flu scare in Guangzhou. New calls on COP to step up its energy-saving measures. And an election stunt by the Prime Minister of Norway.
Welcome back. A team of Hong Kong medical professionals headed north today to learn more about the H7N9 bird flu scare in neighboring Guangdong province. Mainland health experts say there is no need to ban live poultry exports to Hong Kong for the time being. Vicky Kung has more.
Infectious disease experts from the Hospital Authority, the Center for Health Protection, and the University of Hong Kong arrived at Guangzhou this morning to meet with provincial health officials. Hospital Authority Chief Manager Liu Shaohuai said he will collect clinical data from mainland hospitals for analysis back here in Hong Kong. So far, 134 human infections of the H7N9 virus have been confirmed on the mainland, including a 51-year-old chicken vendor in Huizhou who remains critically ill in a Guangzhou hospital. Doctors say there's been no improvement in her condition. Meanwhile, Guangdong health officials said at a press conference today that they have set aside 30 million renminbi to be given out as financial assistance to H7N9 bird flu patients who cannot afford their medical expenses. Although the H7N9 virus has a mortality rate of over 30%, both mainland and Hong Kong health experts believe it's not necessary for the SAR to ban live poultry imports from the mainland for the time being. Of the more than 30 people who have been in close contact with the patient from Huizhou, none tested positive for the virus. Even though this suggests a low chance of human-to-human transmission of the disease, there's been a call for caution here in Hong Kong.
We're only in a few days following the report of the lady in the hospital, and so we can tolerate a few more days for the government to get more evidence.
Chan said antiviral medicine against the H7N9 virus will only be effective if it's administered within 2 days of the appearance of flu symptoms. She also said the government has a good stock of this kind of medicine, though there is currently no vaccine against the disease. World Health Organization guidelines say eggs and chicken meat will still be safe to eat as long as we cook them thoroughly at a temperature higher than 70 degrees Celsius, which will kill the avian flu virus. The Center for Food Safety also assured citizens that Hong Kong has no poultry trade with farms or food processing factories within a 13-kilometer radius of the affected township in Huizhou. But Secretary for Food and Health Ko Weng-man, speaking to reporters while on a visit to Beijing, said the government will remain vigilant as there is a greater risk of bird flu infections in the autumn and winter. Vicky Kong, TVB News.
The Education Bureau says it has received notice from the Chief Executive's office asking for a report on the abusive language case involving teacher Alpeus Lam. Lam was caught on video swearing at police over their handling of demonstrators against the Falun Gong movement. But as Rani Samtani reports, this has drawn a heavy political backlash.
The Pan Democrats are calling for Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying to step down once again. They're accusing him of carrying out Communist Party orders to create conflict using what they called cultural revolution tactics.
I think as the Chief Executive, he must have a lot of things to be worried about than a teacher using foul language in one incident. for him as the chief executive, demanding a report from the Secretary for Education on such a case is totally inappropriate and uncalled for.
Chong's party is angered by Leung's comments at a forum yesterday when he criticized teacher Alpais Lam for swearing at police and jumping to the officer's defense. The CE has now demanded a report from the Education Bureau on the teacher. Labour Party lawmaker Lee Cheuk-yan said that the CE should have also asked the Secretary for Security to submit a report on the police's actions. The Professional Teachers Union also criticized the chief executive's demand for a report on Lam, saying it was adding fuel to the fire in an already heated situation. It said that matters involving teachers' behavior should be handled by the Council on Professional Conduct in Education instead.
Well, we think that the CE's comment is actually inappropriate because, he just focused on the individual behavior of a teacher, but failed to look into the larger problem of the conflict between the citizen and the police.
The chairman of the Independent Police Complaints Council said it has become more often for protests to descend into disputes, with frontline police officers often targeted.
And I would urge everyone who wants to express their opinion to do so in a peaceful way, in a reasonable way, and that in fact makes your view, makes your voice more palatable and easier to accept, rather than express it in any violent way.
Alpais Lam's father, Lam Shongxing, who's a member of the League of Social Democrats, asked what more the government wants his daughter to do. She has already made multiple apologies to students, parents, and her school. He added that his daughter has left Hong Kong to avoid the media frenzy for the time being. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
There were fresh calls today for CLP to step up its energy-saving measures. The calls came as the power company reported an increase in earnings for the first half of the year. Evelina Lung reports.
These protesters attempted to make their voices heard as CLP announced its interim results for 2013. With the power giant reporting steady results for the first half of the year, demonstrators felt it could afford to subsidize its customers in getting hold of energy-saving devices.
We are demanding CLP to provide 300 million subsidies for the public, for their user, to apply it for more efficient electricity appliances in order to achieve a long-term energy saving.
The goal will be to see an energy saving of 1%. CLP says it's been committed to helping its customers make energy savings, but more has to be done before the company can expand its energy-saving measures.
The issue of how to engage more people, how to even raise the question of a target, really is one that involves a discussion with our customers and the community in general.
The company's local operating earnings for the first half of 2013 surged to $3.417 billion, a 5.5% rise compared with the same period last year. But Lancaster says it's still too early to say whether the company will adjust electricity tariffs. On the current scheme of control agreement, CLP says it has already submitted a new development plan to the government covering investments needed for its local business from 2014 to 2019. Evelina Lang, TVB News.
All right, Chris, do you have some more PGA action for us today?
Big day for now winner of a major. American golfer Justin Duffner, that is, captured his first major championship on Sunday. Duffner made amends for losing the PGA Championship 2 years ago with a two-stroke win at Oak Hill in New York. Here's Jameson Wong.
Nothing outwardly spectacular about him unless you count the ball striking within a foot for birdie, ho-hum. A 2-under 68, good enough for a two-stroke win over fellow American Jim Furyk. The 36-year-old Duffner with his first major title and redemption for his final round collapse at the PGA Championship in 2011.
Yeah, it's definitely going to change my life, but I'm determined that it's not going to change me. There's a lot of things that are going to come up tournament-wise, different tournaments I can play in, different opportunities that are come my way. And I'm going to have to deal with that. I got a great circle of people around me, from my management team to my caddy to my wife to my coach, that I'm looking for them to keep me in check, to make sure that it doesn't change me.
Duffner became the third first-time major champion this year, while Tiger Woods has now gone 18 majors without a victory. Woods finished in a tie for 40th, 14 shots behind Duffner. Jameson Wong, TVB News.
Usain Bolt electrified the crowd in Moscow, winning the 100 meters final at the World Championships. Bolt pulled away from American Justin Gatlin at the 50-meter mark. The 26-year-old Jamaican won in a time of 9.77 seconds. Two of his biggest rivals were not at the competition. Countryman Asafa Powell and American Tyson Gay recently tested positive for banned substances. Bolt, a huge football fan, dedicated the win to his favorite team, Manchester United.
And finally, those running for political office typically turn to grassroots campaigning when determining the needs of their constituents. But that wasn't good enough for Norway's Prime Minister. Jens Stoltenberg became an undercover cabbie to better understand what kind of leader his fellow countrymen truly want.
Let's face it, being able to talk politics face-to-face with any country's prime minister is often next to impossible. But in Norway, the prime minister made it possible. For one day back in June, Jens Stoltenberg donned a taxi driver's uniform and sunglasses to talk politics while driving passengers around the capital city of Oslo. Parliamentary elections in Norway are slated for September 9th. With Stoltenberg's Labour Party currently trailing in the polls, this stunt was aimed at boosting the Prime Minister's re-election campaign. Plus, Stoltenberg insists if there's one place people don't hold back, it's inside a taxi. While the undercover cab driver ploy worked for some, others weren't fooled one bit. These women couldn't stop laughing once they realized the head of His Majesty's government was their cabbie. Another passenger earnestly asked him, "Are you a part-time taxi driver now?" Many passengers had to overcome utter shock before discussions turned to politics. Stoltenberg, who has led the Nordic country for the past 8 years, confessed he wasn't used to driving, as he usually sits at the back of his chauffeured car. So, mistaking the clutch for the vehicle's automatic brake, at one point, he gave the car an abrupt jolt. One passenger complained, "I'm not happy with your driving." Another said, "I guess I'll live." While a third admitted, "Your driving is really bad." In the end, Stoltenberg told passengers not to worry. If they promised to re-elect him, he promised never to drive a cab again. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
And that's our news. Thanks for watching.
Good night.
Good evening. The weather today was mainly fine and very hot. And as tonight's situation chart shows, a ridge of high pressure is bringing generally fine weather to southeastern China. At 5 p.m., severe typhoon Utor was estimated to be about 690 kilometers southeast of Hong Kong. It is forecast to move west-northwest at about 22 kilometers per hour across the central part of the South China Sea in the general direction of the western coast of Guangdong. Today's temperatures range from 27.7 to 34.9 degrees, and the relative humidity was between 51 and 85%. Moderate easterly winds. The current temperature is now 31 degrees Celsius, with the relative humidity standing at 59%. A trace of rainfall has been recorded since midnight. The standby signal number 1 is now in force. So Freddie, how's the weather tomorrow? It will be cloudy tonight. There will be squally showers tomorrow. Showers will be heavy at times. Temperatures will range between 26 and 31 degrees. It will be rather windy with heavy squally showers in the next couple of days. Tomorrow's API is forecast at 10 to 75, and the pollution level will range from low to high. And the maximum UV intensity forecast for tomorrow will be about 5. And here's the latest global weather update. Sunny in Shanghai, showers in Taipei and Xiamen. Showers in Guangzhou and Macau, cloudy in Chengdu. Thunderstorms in Beijing, cloudy in Seoul and Tokyo. Thunderstorms in Bangkok, rain in Ho Chi Minh City and Manila. Bright in Kuala Lumpur, thunderstorms in Singapore, rain in Jakarta. Thunderstorms in New Delhi, rain in Karachi and Mumbai. Sunny in Cairo. Sunny in Brisbane and Sydney, showers in Melbourne. Cloudy in Toronto. Bright in Vancouver, cloudy in San Francisco. Bright in London, sunny in Paris, cloudy in Frankfurt, showers in Zurich. And that's the weather. Have a lovely evening.